Hi, my name is Lynn Wilson, and today I'll be talking to you about digital learning versus blended learning and what the similarities are and differences are. Because of my older Mac, I use a Keynote presentation with Screencast-O-Matic to make a voiceover for this video, so please bear with me as we work our way through the presentation. The first important thing to realize is that both digital learning and blended learning hold very many similarities. The biggest ones being that they both obviously have to do with education, and then they both have to do with some aspect of technology. Now, it's the way that they're implemented and used and what this means in terms of technology and lessons where the differences really lie. So like I said, even though there are a lot of similarities, there are more differences between the two as well. So digital learning generally means any use of technology for learning. So some simple examples would be going online to do a research project, Skyping with professionals if you're doing an interview for a project. It could also mean on the extreme end a fully online program. For example, many graduate degrees are fully online. You never go to campus, never meet with teachers. It's all done through the computer or through different programs. It could also mean more simple programs that you might use on the classroom on an everyday basis. Blackboard, Canvas, Formative, all of these things to help you with grading, organizing papers, dispersing information to students that make your life on a daily basis easier. But the key here is that with digital learning, it might be technology rich, meaning there's a lot of technology being used, but it's not blended in the sense of it's not being used in regards to the fully well-rounded idea of blended learning. Blended learning is a little more complex. So we have the formal definition there, a formal education program in which a student learns at least in part through online programs and with some element as student control over time, place, path, and or pace. But the three key parts to blended learning is that it is a formal education program. It's not just spur of the moment, it's not something you bought at the store, it's an actual formal program through a school or university, etc. There is some part of it that is online. So beyond being digital, there is an online internet component to it. And then finally, the third part that's really important is that there is student control over the learning. Like it says, the time, place, path, or pace. That's really key to this as well. Some other key differences is there's some aspect of supervised learning through the meetings with teacher. It's either in a classroom setting, they might go to a certain classroom or building to do their lessons, but there is a supervision aspect to it. Also, like we talked about before, the students have some control. Now, some might argue that digital learning has control, but that's not necessarily true. A great example is that even if you're taking an online class, your professor may mandate that you use certain programs, that you're online at certain times. If you're using digital learning in the classroom, again, the teacher might mandate that you use a specific program or something in particular. Another key difference is that there are actually 4 specific models for blended learning. So rotational is probably the most common, where students rotate through different activities and at least one of them needs to be online. There's flex, where it's an online course but it's actually held at learning centers, so there is that adult and teacher aspect to it. There's a la carte, which is more like an extension. So if you're taking classes at your high school and there's a certain AP course you want to take, but it's not actually there, you can take an online course to supplement the rest of your education. And then finally, enriched virtual courses. These are mainly online, but there is at least some aspect of in-person meetings that happen. Overall, blended learning is designed to provide students with an integrated learning experience. So rather than just using some sort of source like Canvas or Blackboard, it's really an integration with these online resources, with these different programs to develop well-rounded students. Now, schools can utilize both forms of learning. For example, you might use rotations 2 to 3 days a week with more traditional classroom sessions on the other days, and you may use support of digital learning through Google Classroom, Formative, PowerSchool, etc. Specifically in my class, this is how I have run my classroom the last few years. So 2 to 3 days a week, I would have a rotational method going on with blended learning. And then on those other 2 or 3 days a week, it was a little more traditional in the sense that there would be some lecture aspects and maybe some group work, but during those times I still relied heavily on Google Classroom, Formative, and other applications really to streamline everything into one place. So the main way to kind of differentiate and tell that this is blended learning versus a more traditional classroom with digital technology is you can tell the difference in my classroom with the rotations. So here I give an example of my kind of 3 rotations that I would do during the school day. So the first one will be an individual station where kids will be working on a program called Reading Plus. It's a reading comprehension application where they move at their own pace. It provides me with data, and it really gives them a chance to work on their own. The second group that I would have would be a small group rotation, which would be led by me or supported by me. For my grammar lessons, I tended to do a flipped classroom approach where I would use an Edpuzzle video and questions for their homework the night before, and then the day of class the students would come with any questions, review, and then we had supplemental activities. This way it gave students a chance to revisit issues that they may have had with the lesson. I'm there for support, and then other students that may be able to move ahead can move at a little bit of a quicker pace. The last rotation would change depending on what unit we were in, what we were doing that day. So some examples of what I would do is for that rotation, students could be reading in pairs the novel that we were working on. They could be editing a current writing piece, or they might be working on in a large group as they're working through a project for the unit. So that third rotation was usually pretty flexible to help out with whatever we were focusing on for that day. So as noted in the book, it's important to notice that we want to use both blended learning models and traditional classroom settings with technology to most benefit your students. So I hope this was useful for you, and you have a great day.